Let me just
Hello,
approve it.
everyone. My name is Katie, and welcome to Greenland Quilter. I have a guest that I brought to my channel. Her name is Kris of Sew the Distance, and everyone say hello to Kris. And Kris, would you like to talk a little bit about yourself?
Sure. Hi, I'm Kris O'Neill from Sew the Distance. I have been doing YouTube for about 3 years now. I am a former teacher. Let's see what else. I have a husband, two grown children, and a very needy golden retriever. I live in central Pennsylvania in the middle of nowhere. We lived in Massachusetts for 27 years and moved back home where we grew up about 3 years ago and downsized. And yeah, I'm a full-time YouTuber. I have a website, Sew the Distance, and I'm on all the social medias under Sew the Distance. If you want to check me out, I have a newsletter on my website. I also have some patterns for sale and a whole bunch of good stuff coming up.
That's outstanding. So, who influenced you to want to learn to sew, and how young were you when you started, and what type of sewing did you start out with?
So I always wanted to quilt and make a quilt. That was something I thought about when I was very young, even. And no one in my life really sewed. My mom had to make a few things out of necessity. So she had a sewing machine and stuff, but she absolutely hated it. So it wasn't even somebody in my life that showed me. I don't know what the obsession was or what the draw was, but I always wanted to make a quilt. And I always wanted to sew. So I wish I could say that I had this wonderful influence, but I really didn't. It was just a drive inside of me. I was surrounded by quilts. My grandmother on both sides quilted. So I had that. But when my one grandmother passed before I was born, but the other one, I just at that time didn't even really know she quilted in her youth. So it wasn't something I wanted to go back and talk to her about. And by the time she passed, I was older and realized that she was a quilter. So I wish I had a great
Okay.
answer. People have these wonderful stories about that, and I just don't have one of those. And then did you
So,
ask a second part on when I started?
yeah.
Okay,
And
so
what type of what did you start out with when you first started using a sewing machine?
when I first started using a sewing machine, I started making curtains for my home. We didn't have a lot of money. We were first married. I was very young when I got married. I was 21 when I got married, and I really wanted to have beautiful curtains and stuff like that. And then when my son was a child baby, I also made like pajama bottoms, like when he was a toddler and stuff. So I started with some clothing, and then quickly went to quilting, and that was yeah, almost 30 years ago. So
So you,
he's going to be 32. Yeah.
wow, my
So,
kids are in their early, but one of them's fixing to bypass the early 30s.
oh, okay. Yeah. My other son is 28. So we have two
Nice.
boys. Yeah.
So you
And then,
mentioned about your,
oh,
oops,
I'm
sorry.
sorry.
So you mentioned about your grandmother's quilts. Tell us
Mhm.
about your grandmother's quilts and how it may have influenced you to want to be a quilt creator. And how long have you been making quilts?
So I've been making quilts about 30 years. They really didn't influence me. It was after they passed that I found their quilts. So I can't really even, say that that's why I started. I ended up joining a quilt guild before I ever had made a quilt. And I highly recommend anybody who's listening to this, if you're beginning and you've never even made a quilt, join a quilt guild. I've been in a few just with where I've lived and stuff, and they're just so welcoming. The one I'm in now is, we bring you in with open arms if you're just interested in learning about quilts. And that's how I learned. I had a few mentors in that quilt guild that taught me how to quilt, and I'm forever grateful to them. So that's my origin story.
When did you discover you could repair older quilts, and how has that evolved along with when did you discover that you also wanted to be a teacher of quilt making and repairs?
So I don't really repair that many quilts. I collect. I like to buy old quilts. I've been buying old quilts for about 25 years. I just am drawn to them. I have about, well over 100 in my collection now. And then I do one of the videos series that I do on my channel is lessons from an old quilt. I have repaired maybe a dozen of them. And it was just because I loved them and really wanted to save them. Repairing quilts is tricky though, because each is so unique to what it needs. So to say, you know, I really got into it, it was more like for example, I have one video called the Garbage Can Quilt, and it was a quilt that I was at a flea market. Somebody had thrown it away, and I literally dug it out of the garbage and then took it home. And I have a video on this, tore it apart, and then remade it. But that one, I needed to take some from the sides and put it in the middle. And the quilt's beautiful now, but it's, I don't know, something talks to me through these quilts. I know that sounds crazy, but it does. And I'll just kind of know what it needs. So, but I mean, quilt making is my favorite. That's my hobby. That's what, or well, it's my business too. But repairing quilts is definitely on the side, you know, when I do it. So,
Okay. So tell us
yeah.
about your teaching history and how it has evolved over into teaching quilt skills.
So the reason I started a YouTube channel and started teaching quilting is because of, well, the pandemic. It had hit. I was a high school English teacher for many years, and then I was an ESL teacher, English as a second language. So I had my linguistics degree. I went back and got that, my master's in that, and then I taught ESL for about 4 or 5 years, so not a long time. The pandemic hit, we went to Zoom, and I had pre-K through 12th graders that I taught because I would travel between schools in the district, and I had to record my lessons because, you know, their classes, because I couldn't possibly be with pre-K through 12 every day, you know, every day.
Yeah.
So that got me into recording, and then I really liked it. So then when I decided to not go back to school, we ended up moving. I tried to get my teaching license here in Pennsylvania, but everything was shut down because of the pandemic. So I ended up doing YouTube videos and teaching through that. And because of my history with recording, I knew kind of what I was doing. And it just came full circle for me. And I haven't looked back. I haven't gotten my teaching license yet. And I just taken off with that. So, and then I also teach in person at quilt shops and through guilds and stuff like that too. So that gave me my teaching. You know, so I have the teaching skill set from being a teacher that translated really well into YouTube. So,
What do you love most about quilt creation?
for me, it's so relaxing. I think that's, what do you mean? Like what, like, you know, whether it's quilting or piecing, or do you
Yeah,
mean like,
what part of creating a quilt do you love most?
oh, binding, 100%. Binding's my favorite. It brings it all together for me. It's just, I like to do hand binding, you know, so I sew it to the front and then flip it, and then I'll just, you know, cozy up with that quilt on me and hand bind it. And that's absolutely my favorite part. Yeah. Other than
Okay.
buying fabric, I like that too.
Yeah. I think we all love buying fabric. How many quilts have you made since the beginning? Can you show us one of your first quilts? And do you have a quilt you can share with us that came from either of your grandmothers?
Yeah. So, you know, how many quilts have I made? Oh my goodness. It's gotta be, I would say over 100. I yeah, I couldn't even begin to count how many I've made, especially since YouTube, because it's content that I need to make, you know,
Yeah.
so it's like I feel like I've gone into overdrive with making quilts. And then my first quilt, it's so funny because it was a very ambitious pattern. And one thing I love about being a quilter, meeting a new quilter, is they have no fear. New
Yeah.
quilters are the best because they don't have any. And I was just like that. I had no fear. If I had known now, like then what I know now, I would have never picked this pattern. So just keep that in mind as I show you this. In fact, I don't even know if I tackle this now as a seasoned quilter. So I made this quilt for my kids. It's an I Spy quilt. And we'll talk about some of the things that went wrong, but you can see
Oh,
it is all hexagon.
hexagons. Oh my
Yeah,
gosh.
all types of
So
everything.
you have hand sewing skills as well.
No, this was done by machine. That's what I
Oh,
mean. They
you
have
did
no
that on a
fear.
machine.
I did
Oh,
that on a
okay.
machine. I did not know what a 1/4 inch seam allowance was. I did not. I did this, and it's wonky. I mean, I've tried to find it, and I got to show you the binding too, because that's funny too to look at. I mean, look at that hexagon, that little. the
Yeah.
cloud. He got very squatty.
Yeah. I can
I
see
mean, it
that.
came out. It worked.
Yeah, but
I was
it's
very proud of it.
beautiful.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then my binding, you can even see here. I don't know if that, can you see that? How terrible.
Yep.
Like the binding is a mess. But and then I quilted it by machine and I used white thread, which, not a big deal either. I stitched in the ditch, or I tried to, but I can tell you this quilt has gone on every road trip with my kids and every event. If I needed them to be, have some quiet, we had to be quiet, even to church, all that stuff. And they played I Spy with this for years. So
Wow.
even though it's not a perfect quilt, it's not even close to a perfect quilt, it really served its purpose and it is special to me. And when I pulled it out, I couldn't believe how soft it is.
It
It's
looks
so,
like it's been loved and
it
still looks
has. Yeah.
beautiful.
I put a star on the back. Some people might remember that. I think that's a
Oh,
Joanne
that's
fabric
really
star. And
cool.
I mean,
Yeah.
I did. Yeah, there's just some wonderful memories in it. And part of me wants to go back and redo that binding because it's a mess. I pieced it and folded it and did all kinds of stuff. But on the other hand, I'm like, it's held up
That's
and
what
it's
makes that one
part of the
unique.
history.
That shows you where
It
you
is. Yeah.
started from compared to where
Yeah.
you are now. And I think that's a great way of having something that started at a starting point to where you are now. You can see how much your skill set has grown.
It has, but I even look at this and think, I don't know that I'd tackle this by machine. I would probably do it by hand, like you said, but
Yeah.
it was
I would have
brave. I
thought
mean,
that's what you would have
that's
did.
brave.
That's why I haven't tackled one because I don't know that it could be done by machine. But no, you proved me wrong. You did it with a
Hey,
machine.
I haven't made that sense, so I don't. I think I look at it and I'm in awe. And there's a few quilts like that I look back at the beginning that I thought you have no fear. You don't know enough to have the fear,
Yeah.
of that pattern. You're like, oh, it's a quilt pattern. I'll just do what the directions say. And that's just a testimony of how sometimes when we know the rules or we learn more about quilting, we put ourselves into a box and don't get brave with it because it's just fabric. It's just
Yep.
fabric.
Yep. Um,
Yeah.
as far as types of quilts, do you like creating the traditional style or the modern style? Or do you lean like in between the two?
So my inner self wants to be a modern quilter in a really bad kind of way, but my heart and brain tells me I'm really not a modern quilter because every time I try it, I don't like it. So I look at modern quilts and I think they're the coolest thing ever, and then I make one and I'm like, I don't love it. I don't love doing it. So I think I'm more of a traditional quilter. I like traditional patterns. I like symmetry. Um, I'm a little eclectic with that too, though. I like to try some different things. I'm always like trying new things. Like I'll just play. I'll come into my sewing room and
Yeah.
just, if I need to decompress, I'll play for a little bit and try different things. But yeah, I think I've settled into traditional. Yeah.
Do you have a favorite, or is there a certain style of fabric that you like buying? A lot of people, there's people who like, the 1800s circa of fabrics, or tulip pink, or Cape Bassett, or like me, batiks. What is your jelly?
My jelly is, I love the brights. I love Tula. I love Allison Glass. I tend to like anything by Riley Blake. For whatever reason, their fabrics really talk to me too.
Yeah.
But I love the more muted colors too. I have a little bit of everything and it's whatever catches my eye. I'm really into some new designers and checking them out. I made a quilt from, oh, who was it? I think I jotted it down so I wouldn't forget because I was like, she's really great. Um, oh, Robin Pickens. So I did a video on this on one layer cake quilt, and I used Robin Pickens' fall line, and I loved it. And she just came out with another line, so I'm checking that out too. So some of the new designers I'm enjoying too, but it's
Oh, well,
whatever
that's
catches
really cool. Did you want to show us one of your grandmother's quilts?
Oh, sure. So I've done lessons from an old quilt video on this one. So if anybody out there's seen this one, you've seen this quilt. But this is my favorite. It's really heavy, and it's a crazy quilt that's all done by hand. It
Mm.
probably weighs 20 pounds, if not more. It's all
Is that
velvet.
stitching on the hand stitching
Yeah,
on the out? Wow, look
yeah.
at that.
Yep. So this
That
was,
is
and I know the
awesome.
date on this one. Well, I'm trying to remember. Must be from the 1940s, 1950s that this was made. The back
Nice.
is completely
It's,
wool.
is it regular cotton or is it from
It's
clothing or
or,
something?
or velveteen
Okay.
and wool.
Yeah, I thought it looked like it was a heavier fabric. I was going
Super.
to
I
ask you
mean,
if it was a
and heavy.
it's not gabardine. What is that fabric that has the little indentions of stripes, but you don't see stripes?
Oh, corduroy?
Yeah, it
Like a
looks
corduroy?
a lot like I thought that might have been corduroy, but it's velvet, so and they
Yeah, it's
both have the
velvet.
same
Well, there's one
thickness.
here that's like a corduroy that's got a texture to it. But that, yeah, that's all hand stitched. And you can see them stitched through to the back.
Wow, that is
It's, like I said, like 20
beautiful.
pounds. And it
Yeah, I
is
can
my favorite.
imagine. Sorry.
It's a great. And that one's like when you're sick and need to be really, really warm,
Yep,
you pull that one.
definitely. Or when it's a
Yeah.
really cold day like it is in the United States right now.
That's really we were getting it. Yeah, it's super heavy. It's like the original weighted blanket, you know.
Yeah,
So
definitely a beautiful one.
yeah.
Okay, so what does your family think about you being a quilt creator? And are any of your family members interested in your quilt making?
Yeah, so I mean my kids grew up with it. They saw it from the beginning. They always knew mom was a quilter, loved to go like I'd drag them to the fabric stores and stuff and quilt shows and stuff like that. So they're really well versed in the art of quilting. Neither of them really want to quilt. My son, I have one son who's more of a hands-on type of guy, who wants to, he does like, construction work and that type of thing, like more of the physical stuff. My other son, my younger son is, he minored in graphic design. So he's much into, he loves the design of things. He works in marketing and he does website design. So he likes the artsy part of that. And he's been in a few of my videos and he's helped me pick out fabrics. He lives in Vermont though, so it's a little bit far. So when he comes home, we always do a video together. And he's more of that type of hands-on,
Oh, that's
likes colors.
cool. So they're different, but to
Yeah.
each other.
Yes,
That's
very
really
much so.
nice.
Yeah, but they both grew up with it. They both know how to basic sewing. I made sure that they both knew basic sewing. Um, yeah, and as far as YouTube goes and getting into it as a business, my younger son really pushed me to that. He's like, Mom, you'd be great, and he helped me a lot with the technical part of it, like the cameras, and just because that
Yeah,
kind of was his field and what like the analytics and all that stuff. And he still helps me with that. And I was on the phone with him yesterday about it. So he's great with that, helped us with our website design and stuff. So
that's
they're
awesome.
really sort of wonderful. My husband is retiring in March and joining the business. So he'll be part of Sew the Distance in March. He's yeah, so we're all in the family. It's kind of becoming a family business.
So what will your husband be doing?
He's working the business with me on Sew the Distance.
No,
Yeah.
I mean, what will he be doing in Sew the Distance? I mean, will he be doing the technology end of it, or is he going to be sewing with you, or what's,
We'll see. He
you don't know yet? You
probably a little
don't
bit of
have a plan
everything.
yet? Okay.
No, we have plans, but it's we do I released my first pattern in December and I have a lot of fun, cool stuff coming up this year. So there's a lot of work for him to do. So pattern writing is not for the weak. It's a lot harder
No,
than it looks. And
I bet.
so he's helped tremendously with that already. And then just marketing and getting out there with affiliate marketing and sponsorships and other special events that we have going on and stuff like that.
Oh,
So
that's
yeah,
awesome.
it's a lot. It's, running a business. It's there's a whole lot on the back end that people don't see. If anybody out there has ran a business, they know that. So, there's plenty for them to do. Trust me, because I'm
There's plenty
getting
to do before you
I
ever
can't
even
bring
become
myself
a
ragged.
business, I've seen. My goodness, there's so much goes into this.
There it really is. Yeah.
Yeah,
And, with YouTube just being a small portion of that, so it's a lot, but we're doing it. So it's
well,
exciting
that's
to have it.
outstanding. Yeah.
Yeah.
When did you become a YouTube content creator and what motivated you to start it, along with how did you incorporate your love of teaching and quilting and has that evolved?
Sure. Yeah. So I mentioned, that I left teaching in, well, it was in August of 2020 when we moved or knew we were moving. We hadn't moved yet. We were going to move that fall. And so I loved having the teaching outlet. So I started in September of 2020 was my first video. And boy, those early videos, I cringe at them, and I thought they were wonderful, but I cringe when I go back and watch. They still are up on my channel, and it's a lot of fun to go back and see them. But it's also, yeah, come a long way. So I love that it gave me the outlet for teaching, and I came into that pretty quickly. I realized that it was going to be a good outlet for teaching. I think in the beginning, it's hard. YouTube, one of the things that you learn real quick with YouTube is that you can't like put on a different persona, or you really have to let yourself be yourself, because just like with teaching students can see that a mile away if you're trying to be fake or anything. Same thing with the viewers. And it's intimidating to put something out there that's going to be out there probably forever into the world. And it's an image of yourself, and you kind of have a wall up when you start. So I think the biggest thing I learned over the 3 years of doing this, probably like 6 months in, is that I had to let that wall down. And I'm a little goofy on my, I'm not for everybody. I'm not everybody's cup of tea. Okay, my teaching style isn't for everybody, trust me. They tell me in the comments. But I pronounce things wrong. I sometimes get off track. I talk with my hands a lot. So that's who I am, though. And if you meet me in real life, you'll be like, oh, it's the same person. So, and I really take pride in that. I did an event last summer with the Soye brothers. I went to Las Vegas. It was a lot of fun. We did a few videos together and a few events, and they're awesome. First of all, in fact, I was just texting Tiankum today. They're just fantastic, and that was the first thing they said. They said, "Wow, you're the exact same person." And to me, that's the biggest compliment, because seeing my personality is true and coming through to the viewers, to me, is just that's what it's all about. Yeah. So I think that's where I evolved as a teacher, is just coming into my own. And you notice in my early videos, I'm more stiff and more rehearsed and all that craziness.
So okay, you had talked about that your YouTube creator channel has turned into a business. So can you tell us about your brand and your business and what your goals were at the beginning, and how has that changed over time?
Sure. So at the beginning, it wasn't intended to be a business. It was just something fun I was going to do. So it wasn't even to make any money or to, provide. I was just having fun and kind of as a filler until I got my teaching license, and it just evolved from there. So I can't say I really had many goals in the beginning other than to survive getting a video out, which can be tricky in itself. It can be, those first, I'd say at least 20 videos are tough to get out. It took me all week to get one out. So that really was the beginning. Last year, it was probably in January, February that I finally just decided I'm either going to do this or I'm not. And I decided to create a business out of it and to really be all in with it. I started to make some money at it. I started to see that there's money to be made. I saw that I was welcomed into the community, and that I was really passionate, and I hadn't stopped liking it yet. So I still absolutely enjoyed doing it. So that's huge for me, because I want to do what I love for a living, even though it's a lot of work, I don't mind that. So as I started writing my goals out for last year is when things kind of just started evolving. I started getting more technology. I got Final Cut Pro, and I learned that for editing. So I upgraded my editing. Still am upgrading my editing as I'm learning more and more. We launched the website in August, and that was, very well planned. I started February, really planning out my year. So we knew we were going to be doing a launch of a website. Again, we built the website ourselves. We used a platform, but there's a lot that goes into a website building. It took us a couple weeks full time doing that. So I usually take some time off in the summertime. That's what I did during that time, was build the website. And it just has snowballed from there. I'm religious. A lot of prayer goes into this. I felt like God's led me every step of this way. So I always have him on my side, and I just feel like the next steps are always kind of planned for me, and I kind of know what I'm going and where I'm going with it. So it's just evolved as I evolved as a quilter, or as a
Okay.
teacher of quilting, I should say. So
Are there any other hobbies or endeavors that you pursue as well?
this is full time right now. This is do I pursue I yeah. I I do a lot. Everything's pretty much quilting right now related, whether it's even just reading about quilts or learning, or learning new technology. Um yeah, I wish I could say I had other stuff. I love my dog. I spend a lot of time with her. I do some reading, usually in the winter. I crochet sometimes.
See,
Right
there's
now
a
I do.
hobby right there, crocheting.
Yeah, I haven't done that in a few years, but I
That
do
is a,
work. Oh
that
yeah,
behind me is
yeah.
crochet.
Yes, I made a shawl like that with yeah, a long time ago. But yeah, that's beautiful. It's beautiful.
Thank you.
So yeah, I did like crocheting, but I haven't done that in a while. I always have to have something in my hands, obviously, because I'm always using my hands. So at night when I'm watching TV, I embroider, but that's really quilting too. I mean, they get made into quilts and stuff.
Yeah, when I
So I
first moved over
crochet.
here, I had to find things to do because
Yeah.
I was doing other things when I was in Florida, but this was something that, I've been doing for 50 years and well, not that type of skill set, but I was just a beginner. So,
Yeah.
but it's been a great way to keep the brain busy.
It definitely, and they say, crocheting, I don't knit. I'd love to learn if in my free time. I
Yeah,
don't know
me
when that would
too,
be,
but
but
it's like two left hands here.
yeah, the crocheting, I loved it. And they say it's just so good for our brains to have something like that. So I just
Okay,
haven't done
so
it
now
yet.
what I'm going to do is we're going to do a little fun with rapid fire. So I'm gonna put you on your yeah. So what I want you to do is I want you to tell me five skills. What five skills should a beginner quilter learn about to help them become a good quilt maker as they learn?
Oh, just like I said, for my first quote is have no fear, and kind of embrace that wonderful spirit of having no fear and trying anything and not really knowing what you're doing. Enjoy the process would be the second one. Enjoy the process of learning, and don't be too hard on yourself with that. Skills, we would never expect a kid to just get on a bike and ride it.
No.
We wouldn't expect it from other people to just be able to pick something up and do it. You aren't going to be able to pick something up and just do it with quilting either. It just takes time and practice, and that would be the best advice. The next thing is join a guild, find your tribe, find those people that are going to help you. And you don't know, you just don't know what to do with maybe a certain color or something. You can either send a group text out, or you can talk to friends or bring it to guild, and they'll just help you. Quilters are great. They are so helpful, and they want to see you succeed. And then on the flip side, you do get some judgy judges, of some people really like to judge, and you just have to put them aside and know you're doing the best you can. And there are a million ways to make a quilt. And if you watch any of my lessons from an old quilt, you learn that, because I talk about that. There are so many ways to make a quilt, and
Yeah.
there's no right or wrong way to do it. There really isn't. So have fun. I don't know. Was that
Yep.
five? I think that was five.
Yep, that was fine. Okay,
Yeah.
what suggest five tools that every beginner quilter should start with and why?
Oh boy. Beginner quilter should start with, well, good rotary cutter, and change the blade often. Okay,
Okay.
just change the blade off, and start as soon as you start to see it slipping. It's important for your safety, and it's important for your accuracy if you want to be accurate. And it makes your life easier.
Mm-hmm.
Clean your machine, too. That's another one. But and as far as the machine goes, get what you can afford. That would be the tool that you'd want, of course, to have a nice one. Try to stay away from great grandma's old machine if you don't know how to use it. And if you do know how to use it, get it serviced so you know it's in good working order before you start using it, because it can be very frustrating. People, I know many people have left quilting because of that very reason. Uh, let's see what else. A good cutting mat. A good cutting mat. Don't go to the discount store and get a good Olfa self-healing mat. It's going to make a difference in your life. And then a good ruler. They're pricey, But I personally love creative grid rulers because they have the grippies on the bottom. There's lots of different measurements, and get the largest ruler you can, because then you can cut anything, right?
Yep.
So it's kind of big and clunky, but at least you can cut small things or big things.
You'll end up using that long ruler a lot.
Yeah, you will. I mean, the long rule. I say the long ruler just because I mean, if I could tell you to buy like 4 different rulers, I would do that. Where you have some different options.
Yeah.
But the biggest that you can find, if you can only afford one ruler, get the biggest that you can afford, because then you can cut anything with it.
Yep, you can. Yep.
And what else? A good iron. Well,
Yep.
not even a good iron. An iron that works. Because
Yeah.
I have to say, since I've been quilting the 30 years, I've gone through a lot of irons, and I've gone through a lot of trends with irons. And a lot of them are so overpriced. My favorite iron came from Amazon. It's $30. And then when it dies, about every 2 years, I just replace it for $30.
So what do you think is the hardest thing about quilt making or quilting?
Oh, the hardest thing. Time, probably finding the time to do it. It's a time consuming hobby. You don't get a lot of instant gratification. So, when you make a tote bag, and sometimes I do that, or a zipper pouch, I can get one done in a few hours and have a finished product. But quilting takes hours upon hours upon hours to get from start to finish. So I think time is really the biggest or the hardest part is carving, especially if you work full time. When I was teaching, I would get up early and I'd sew in the morning, and then sew when I got home from school, because for me, it's my therapy. I really do decompress with it. And yeah, time. Yeah.
So, what piece of advice would you give a beginner quilter? Just, we talked about what kind of skills what are the 5 skills a beginner quilter should learn. We talked about what type of tools to use, but now what would be your one piece of advice you would give a quilter that's starting out?
Just starting out, that you'll get good at it, and to assure them that they're not going to be good at first, and that's okay. And but it will come. That skill set will come. You will be able to do a 1/4 inch without even thinking about it. You will be able to sew straight without thinking about it. The beginning is the hardest, because you're learning muscle memory. You're learning to eyeball things that you didn't know you had to. So I think that's the biggest. Stick with it. Your work will pay off. Your work will pay off.
Do you have any other advice that you would like to share with quilters? Any quilter?
Any quilter. No, I mean, there's so many ways to make a quilt. That's my best advice, is to be open to whatever works and figure it out. Because you don't do it the way somebody else does it, doesn't mean it's wrong. And don't let anybody tell you that it's wrong, because there's no one way to do it.
Yeah, that's right. There's no wrong way or right way, in my opinion.
There isn't. And people will try to tell you there is. And I have to say, I'm kind of embarrassed to say, when I started even my YouTube channel, I feel like I was a little like that this is the way you do it. There are practices I do that I think work for me, but that doesn't mean that it's right for everybody. I set my seams. I am telling you that I will never stop setting my seams. I think it makes all the difference in the world for me.
Yeah.
But that might not be something you do.
It's what works for your brain. So
it works for my brain and for my results. And, a lot goes into my results. So it's the results I like. It might not be what you like, and you might not want to do something like that. That's fine. And it's just, and like I said, there's just no right or wrong way. So,
okay. So, I just wanted to say thank you for coming and letting me interview you. And I'm happy that we were able to establish a time frame to do this. And thank you so much for
so much fun
sitting down with me and answering my questions. And I
hope
hope that we
having
can
me on.
have future endeavors at some point together. So thank you again.
Sure. It's been awesome. Thank you. It's been my pleasure. It's awesome.
Okay. See everybody later. Bye.